You've heard it before. In the Middle Ages, people only lived to be 30, maybe 35. Makes it sound like by 40 you're a legend and no one got anywhere near today's retirement age. But that raises an awkward question. Why do we know so many medieval kings, monks, and scholars who lived well into their 70s? Take Eleanor of Aquitaine, Queen of France and England. She lived to be about 80 and stayed politically active almost to her final breath. Or the Venetian doges. Many of them were only elected to office at 70 years old. So are the numbers lying to us? No. But as the saying goes, there are lies, damned lies, and statistics. And it's not just about math. If people weren't dropping dead at 30, then what made those statistics so grim? And what hidden superpowers let our ancestors reach old age? The first filter, surviving early childhood. The main reason for that low average lifespan isn't adults at all. It's children. In medieval Europe, 30 to 40% of infants didn't live to see their 5th birthday. Infections, colds, dysentery, famine, childbirth complications, all of it was deadly. In some regions, a newborn wasn't officially recognized as alive until they survived the first 7 or 9 days. Too often, death won the race before hope. But here's the crucial twist. If a child survived early childhood, their odds changed dramatically. Reaching 10 years old meant you now had a real chance of living well into adulthood. It was child mortality that pulled the average down, creating the illusion that adults died young. Okay, let's say you survived childhood. Does that mean life gets safer from here? Deadly scratches, a world before medicine. The Middle Ages was a world without antibiotics, without germ theory, and without hygiene as we know it. People didn't know about bacteria yet, and disease wasn't seen as a rare exception. It was a normal part of daily life, something almost inevitable and sudden, much like a bout of bad weather. Typhus, smallpox, tuberculosis, dysentery. Those words landed like a death sentence. A simple scratch could fester and kill you in days. A toothache could end as blood poisoning. Effective medicine didn't exist, and the cures were often more dangerous than the disease. Bloodletting, poultices, dubious potions. But above all of them stood the plague. The Black Death of the 14th century wiped out up to a third of Europe's population, leaving empty villages and ghost towns. But here's what matters. The plague wasn't a constant threat. It came in rare, devastating waves. People could live for decades without a major epidemic, and then, in a single year, lose half their city, their family, their neighbors, and their whole world. But disease didn't kill everyone the same. Your odds of survival depended on more than just luck. Safe havens, the longevity of the cloister. A peasant, a knight, a monk, and a king all lived in the same world, but their living conditions were radically different, and so were their chances of reaching old age. Most of Europe's population were peasants. Their lives were physically brutal. Work from dawn to dusk in the fields, chronic malnutrition, constant injuries. Archaeologists find arthritis on peasant skeletons by age 30 or 40. Bones that broke and healed badly without treatment. And that's not even mentioning the stress. Even if a peasant avoided the plague, their body just wore out faster. Aristocrats lived differently. They ate far better, more meat, fish, and wine, slept in warm rooms, and rarely, if ever, performed any form of heavy labor. They had access to doctors, primitive by modern standards, yes, but more importantly, rest and recovery. That didn't guarantee a long life, but it improved your chances of surviving illness and injury. Monks were a special case. Sources show that in some monasteries, life expectancy was higher than for the rest of the population. Regular meals, a fixed daily routine, isolation from city epidemics, and avoiding dangerous labor. All of these factors made monasteries some of the safest and most stable places at the time. The Middle Ages were brutal, but death was not spread evenly. Your social status directly affected how many years you got. But even wealth and status couldn't protect you from one danger that medieval people didn't just accept, they considered it an honor. Warrior's fate: why women outlived men. Men died more often and earlier than women in the Middle Ages. It wasn't biology, it was social roles. From a young age, they were expected to fight, defend, punish, and take risks. War was the constant backdrop of European life. Campaigns lasted months. Supplies were terrible. Discipline was harsh. Even off the battlefield, danger never went away. Jousting tournaments, sparring matches, duels, they regularly ended in injury or death. Chronicles tell us many noble warriors didn't die from sword cuts, but from infected wounds. Without antiseptics, even a shallow cut could be fatal. Soldiers often died from cold, hunger, and disease long before any battle. For a man, death wasn't an accident. It was part of the expected path. Women, despite the terrifying risks of childbirth, often ended up as the true long livers. If a woman survived her reproductive years, she had every chance to outlive her husband by decades. Medieval records are full of widows who successfully managed vast estates and lived surprisingly long and active lives into their old age. So, how long did people actually live in the Middle Ages? Beyond statistics, the true face of old age. Counting from birth, yes, the average life expectancy in medieval Europe was about 30 to 35, but that number is deeply misleading. If you made it to 20, your remaining life expectancy jumped by another 30 or 40 years. Reaching 50 or even 60 wasn't a miracle, it was a realistic outcome for those who survived childhood, epidemics, and war. 60-year-olds have always existed. We just rarely call them the norm, because history remembers death more than survival. The Middle Ages weren't an era of short lives, they were an era of constant risk. People never knew if they'd die young or live to be old. And that uncertainty shaped their fears, their faith, their habits, and how they saw life itself. And if you think people from the past were weaker, maybe it's the opposite. They just lived in a world where every single year you survived was already a victory, and maybe that's why, in just 50 years, they built castles and fortresses that still stand today, while we spend our 80 years scrolling through endless feeds. So, what do you think? Could you have survived in medieval Europe? What would have been the one thing that finished you? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. There are a lot more deep dives into history coming your way.